Good morning. It is morning here for me. It's Friday morning. It's just after 8 o'clock. So if you're joining me live and if you're watching, I would love it if you would just add a little comment, just say hi and tell me where you're watching from. So I'm doing these at the same time each week. I've made a commitment to that. And I want to talk about the issues that are important to you and also to me. These are the things that I've noticed as someone also living with chronic illness like you are. So I really want to make sure that I'm talking about issues that are relevant and important to you, and it's something that I can help you with or further your understanding of. And if you wonder why I have that little pause and have a drink, it's actually because this thing that I'm using to stream, if I don't do that and I start talking, it fast forwards the first few seconds, so I sound like a mouse on speed or something like that. So it's just good to have that little pause, and it makes the recording a little bit better when people are watching it back in the replay. Or you can always watch this. If you can't catch it live, you can also watch this on my YouTube channel because I do download these and I add it there. So today I'm going to be talking about something that is very dear to my heart because it is what I am, and that is highly sensitive person. I do actually fit the criteria for being a highly sensitive person. And like many HSPs, I am also an introvert. So most HSPs do fall into the introvert side of the spectrum, but not everybody who is a HSP is an introvert. Some ambiverts and even some extroverts also identify as being a HSP, highly sensitive person. And many HSPs, like myself, also identify with being very empathic. And you are most likely to feel this in childhood. In fact, if you are on the introvert side of the spectrum and a HSP, you will often be described as shy, as I was, but I wasn't actually shy. I was just introverted and highly sensitive. As you can see, I'm quite confident and I can be very outgoing where I'm feeling comfortable or where I feel confident. So, highly sensitive people tend to have a certain amount of traits, the similar traits that we share, whether you are introverted, extroverted, or an empath. It doesn't really matter. So, most highly sensitive people are very highly attuned to the slightest change in others. So you're generally the one who can see that somebody feels uncomfortable, and you want to reassure them, or you're the one who can see somebody's cold, or so you can offer them a jacket or a blanket or something like that. You're very attuned to the needs of others. And the downside of this is that HSPs can often become very serious people pleasers. So that sensitivity and that ability to tune into other people's needs can mean you're very focused and feel very uncomfortable when other people feel uncomfortable. So you can try and anticipate their needs, which can turn into a habitual way of being, of always putting other people before yourself, always thinking of others first, putting yourself low down on the hierarchy of things. So it's something, if you are a HSP, it's something to be very aware of, that you don't turn into a people pleaser. Or if you recognize that you are a people pleaser, then that you do something about that, because as I'll get into very shortly, when you have HSP, or when you are a a highly sensitive person, and you have chronic illness, then things can go very, very wrong very, very quickly. So highly sensitive people tend to find it incredibly distressing to know that somebody thinks badly of them. It can be a little emotional hook that you can get stuck on, because we hate being judged and we want to be liked. And the thought that there's somebody walking around in the world who doesn't approve of you or doesn't like you can feel very distressing. There are certain things that you don't like to watch as a HSP. So horror movies, definitely not. Although there are rare exceptions to that. Remember, everything I'm talking about is in general, right? So there's always going to be exceptions and there's always going to be variations. You don't like watching shows where people get pranked. You don't like watching shows where people get humiliated, because that is you're very aware of the other person's discomfort, and as an empath you can imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. And I think being publicly humiliated is a highly sensitive person's biggest nightmare. It's something that you don't want to experience, and if you have experienced it as a HSP, it was probably quite a traumatic experience for you, that will stay with you consciously or unconsciously. Highly sensitive people tend to like to work in a quiet, ordered environment without being observed. So somebody staring over your shoulder while you're trying to work is very upsetting and can really raise your anxiety. So working in an open plan, noisy, chaotic office is a HSP's worst nightmare as well, because it is very easy for highly sensitive people to become overwhelmed by too much stimulation. So in general, we don't like loud noises, especially if they're jarring or discordant. Lots of very bright lights, places where there is a lot of people, a lot of lighting, a lot of stimulus, like big shopping centres or stores with a whole lot of lights and a whole lot of mirrors, where it's easy for your sensory inputs to get confused, can be very uncomfortable. Being around or hearing like neighbors fighting, really loud, angry, raised voices, violence, things like that, animal cruelty, social media can be very, very triggering for HSPs, especially if it involves people bullying other people or being very aggressive or being very rude or very angry, can be very distressing. People saying, mean comments and things like that. So social media can be a bit of a minefield for HSPs. It's also can be upsetting to live in a very cluttered environment. So if there's a lot of mess, if there's a lot of stuff around you, so yeah, living with someone who is really, really untidy or somebody who is a hoarder would be very difficult for a highly sensitive person. And I'm just letting you know I am feeling a little bit low and slow this morning. So if I don't seem like my normal self on camera, it's because I am actually feeling quite tired. And it's taking me a while to get myself up and going this morning. So when I do get tired, I tend to, and when I am feeling a bit low in energy, I do tend to get a little bit slurry in my words and sometimes mispronounce words. So I know you understand, and I know you guys know what it's like, but I'm just letting you know that's what's going on. So what else about highly sensitive people? Especially when you're a child, and I experience this, and especially in your teens when you've got all the hormonal changes going on and your body is changing and people have different expectations, it can be a lot more intense then. So I can remember as a child and in my early teens that I would be overwhelmed to the point of tears by all of the pain of the world. It would feel like it was really, really weighing me down and other people's stuff. Yeah, any stress or anything like that really, really weighed heavily on me, and especially feeling like I could feel other people's pain. So it is very important, if you identify as a highly sensitive person, that you have to have very strong boundaries and you have to be very clear about what emotions are actually yours and what emotions belong to other people. Otherwise, it's going to become very, very overwhelming. And the other thing that tends to happen to highly sensitive people is that you are the one that people tend to come to for advice and support. You can almost be like a magnet. And because you can feel so empathic, then you are open to that, and you can, but the bad negative side of that is you can tend to take that on. So you can take that person's problems on and feel like it is your responsibility to solve it, or feel like you are sharing that person's feelings, which is only going to take you down further, because you can't help somebody out of the hole. When you're down in the hole with them, somebody's got to be up there so you can extend your hand down and metaphorically lift them up. Many highly sensitive people are drawn into the helping professions, no matter what they are. So doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists like me, because we want to help people, and we have a natural inclination to want to help people heal, whether that is physically or whether that is emotionally. And in a large part, some of that comes from altruism and genuinely wanting to help, but it also comes from, it's difficult to sit with somebody in pain. So if you can alleviate that pain, it also helps you feel better. So as a highly sensitive person, smells, lights, sounds, textures can be very, very important to you, and they can have a very high impact. So, for example, when I'm buying clothes and I'm drawn to a particular item, the first thing that I do is I've got to feel the fabric, and immediately if the fabric doesn't feel right, I lose all interest. And in fact, there's almost this aversive sort of like, oh, feeling when I touch fabric that doesn't feel good. If there's tags on clothing that I buy, that's the first thing I've got to cut off. Very sensitive in my skin, very sensitive to bright light, sound, overstimulation of any kind. So in a sense, becoming chronically ill is one of the worst things that can happen to a highly sensitive person, because chronic illness in and of itself is overwhelming to the senses, and highly sensitive people tend to have to be quite sensitive to pain and very sensitive to all sorts of fluctuations in things that are going on with the body. So hot, cold, touch, texture, taste, sound, perception of light, all of those different sorts of things. And of course, if you are affected by things like an unclean environment or clutter or dust or things around you, that you need things to be in order, and you're a highly sensitive person and you are too sick to clean or to tidy up, then that adds an extra layer of distress and anxiety, because the impact of your environment when you are chronically ill is another layer of difficulty. Whereas many people who are not highly sensitive people, it doesn't bother them. And there are degrees to this, like there's a certain amount of clutter or messiness that I can tolerate until it sort of reaches a tipping point. And when it reaches that tipping point, if I'm not able to clean that or tidy that or do anything about it, it does actually affect my mood, and it affects how I feel. And the other thing about highly sensitive people is that we tend to manifest our sensitivity through the body. So, for example, if you're exposed to a lot of negative emotion, or lots of stress or conflict in relationships and things like that, it can tend to manifest physically. So you can get a lot of stress headaches. You can feel it in your gut, so you get that clenching in the gut and that sort of sick feeling in the gut, and low to high levels of anxiety that you will carry in your body, and different forms of stress. And as we know, stress, anxiety are highly inflammatory. More inflammation, more symptoms, more symptoms, more misery. And if you're a HSP, then that just makes it harder for you. So there are a lot of things that can get worse if you're a highly sensitive person with chronic illness. So some of the things that you can do to help yourself if you are a HSP with chronic illness is to remind yourself that emotions are temporary. They come and they go. So how you're feeling now, you will not feel that way forever. even though it can feel like that, because us HSPs tend to dwell on the negative more than the positive things. For example, it's more relationship related, it's more related to how we perceive that people feel about us. So, a highly sensitive person finds it very difficult to take any sort of criticism, even if it's constructive, even if it's meant to help. So, if somebody says something, even slightly critical, you can tend to hold on to that and dwell on that because, as I said before, the thought that somebody is walking around in the world thinking that you're a bad person or thinking badly of you can be a very difficult thing for a highly sensitive person to deal with. So remembering that emotions are temporary is something to really keep in mind. Another thing that you can do to help yourself that you really need to do, and these are all skills that you can learn, and these are all of the things that I teach my clients in my therapy programs, is that you have to really be clear on what is yours and what is not yours. Because we HSPs tend to be much more givers than receivers because we are so attuned to other people. And you simply can't continue that sort of behavior when you have chronic illness. You can't continue to try and anticipate people's needs. You can't continue to be there for people who are in distress or want to tell you all of their problems or come to you and dump all their issues on you. You've really got to start to put yourself first, because all of your available energy needs to go into you and looking after you and looking after your best possible recovery. And I'm not talking about, getting better or curing. I'm just talking about getting the best possible health, happiness, and life that you can get in this present moment. It's about living as best you can right now. Okay, so if you're going to spend all of your time and energy looking after people and worrying about what people are thinking about you and trying to anticipate their needs and make their life easier and try to make them feel comfortable about your illness so that they're not inconvenienced, then that is going to take all of your energy and you're not going to have energy left to go into healing. And in fact, it's going to create more stress for you and more overwhelmed for you, which is going to be more difficult to deal with as a highly sensitive person, because the reserves that you had before you got chronic illness, because we all learn these little ways of coping and dealing with life to protect our sensitivity, right? It's essential that you learn that as a highly sensitive person. When you become chronically ill, it's really not there for you anymore. You don't have those reserves. So it makes you even more wide open and raw and vulnerable to all of that sensory overload that's going on in the world. So you have even less tolerance than you did before. So it's really, really important that you stop doing for other people and you make that shift to looking after yourself. And if you look at it this way, right, that a feeling better, more rested, more looked after, more peaceful, more comfortable you means that everybody around you is going to get the benefit of that. But if you're really stressed and you're really overwhelmed and you're giving until you've got nothing left to give, then everybody gets the flow and effect of that as well. And you're not going to be able to do anything. And if you want to continue to live your life and if you want to continue to try to do the things that you enjoy, to continue to work, to continue to function, to continue to live your life as best you can, then you have to come first. And that is the most important thing that you've got to recognize in that. So it's really important to draw your attention back to yourself and to stop being so focused on what other people think. So, as I said, being somebody with chronic illness and being a highly sensitive person is very, very challenging, but there are many things that you can learn and many things you can do differently to help yourself. And so I'm going to be writing a blog about this that you'll be able to read next week, where I can go into a little bit more detail and when my brain is working a little bit better, so I'll be able to explain it more articulately. But if you've been feeling like really, really overwhelmed and you're wondering if there is something wrong with you, and you do identify as a highly sensitive person, it's only that everything becomes harder, right? Everything becomes harder. That's why it's feeling so difficult. So it's not you, it's not anything wrong with you. It's just that getting chronic illness and being a highly sensitive person is not a good combination. You are going to have to change things. You are going to learn how to protect yourself more. You are going to learn how to have boundaries, and that is going to become more essential. Because if you don't learn to do this, like if you really haven't learned to do this before you got chronically ill, then you certainly need to do it now that you have got chronic illness. Because if you don't do this as a highly sensitive person, you're going to continue to feel overwhelmed, exhausted, anxious, and that leads to depression. And when you are in depression and when you're in anxiety, that makes everything worse. And remember, that creates stress. Stress creates inflammation. Inflammation creates more symptoms, and it becomes a really vicious cycle that is difficult to break out of alone. So emotions will pass, they are not forever. So what you're feeling is temporary, not permanent. You need to start putting yourself first. That is absolutely essential. And if you do not do it, things will not get better. I have to be blunt with you. I'm a highly sensitive person. My sensitivity is my superpower. I really see it that way. My ability to tune into other people, my ability to read other people, to read the room, to read the emotional temperature is essential. It is essential to me as a person. I love that about me. I love being a highly sensitive person. I've learned to embrace it. And it's something that I protect, and it's something that I value, and it's something that I guard fiercely. And I've literally had to learn these skills to survive, because I know through the years that I didn't have those skills and how overwhelmed that I felt with the pain of the world, that ultimately it led me down a very, very dark path that took a long time and a lot of work and a lot of self-development and a lot of therapy and lots of assistance to get over, because it is very, very easy for we HSPs to get entirely overwhelmed to the point where we can almost become non-functional. So it's something that you've got to take seriously. It can feel like a blessing or a curse, but in my opinion, it's a blessing. You just need to know how to protect yourself, how to have those boundaries, how to put yourself first, and how to stay in your own emotions and not allow yourself to get sucked into other people's chaos. We need lots of time alone to ground ourselves. If you don't get time alone, if you're not getting time alone regularly, then you need to really find a way to make that happen. It doesn't have to be a day. It can be as little as 20 minutes, half an hour. But you need to have some time alone in peace and order in order to ground yourself and get some of your energy back, and just get yourself back, all right, to that nice state of equilibrium, so that you can go out and you can deal with the chaos of the world again. Watch what you have and what you listen to, what you consume. Look at the magazines you're reading, look at the shows you're watching, look at the social media. If there's people you need to unfollow, if there's people that you need to block, do that to protect yourself. If there's things about your environment you can change, do that. If you're not feeling well enough to tidy, the whole room if you're feeling well enough just to do one surface, like one bedside table. That will give you one little focal point that even if you're spending most of the day in bed, that'll give you something to focus on, because you can look at that space that is in order and that is clean, and that will help you feel better. So there's all of these little mind shift tools, there's all of these little strategies, there's all of these things that you can do. And so if you are a highly sensitive person and you are feeling really overwhelmed and you feel like you don't have the tools, or you feel like you don't have the ability to help yourself to set these boundaries in place, please remember, you can always book your free discovery session with me. It's just about finding out if I'm the right therapist for you. I'm giving you an opportunity of a gift of my time to sit and talk with me online, anywhere in the world that our time zones can match up. And you can just tell me about what's going on in your life. Tell me about what your issues are. If I feel that I can help you, I'll tell you exactly how I can do that. I will tell you which program I recommend for you and why. I will tell you how it all works. I will give you the pricing and the payment options in Australian dollars. I do not want you to make a decision on the spot. I'll email you all of the information. You take a week to think about it. And if you decide that I feel like the right person to work with, then all you need to do is email me back and I'll get you booked in and we'll get to work. But there's absolutely no pressure. This isn't a sales call. I'm giving you an opportunity just to find out exactly how I work. Ask me any questions that you have and see if you feel like I am the right person to work with, because therapy is a very personal you're coming from and someone that you feel that you can trust. And that's really important. So I hope this has been of value to you. Let me just see. There's a couple of comments. Hi, Georgia. Oh, watching from Wales. Wow, I would love to visit Wales. It's on my goals list one day. I want to go over and I want to visit Scotland and Ireland and Wales. I think that would be wonderful because they all look like such beautiful places and I love the accents. Andrea Jones says, thank you for this. I need the reminder to focus on myself and protect myself more. Absolutely, Andrea. Everything starts here, and we are the source, and you can't give if your cup is empty, right? And the better we feel, the better we look after ourselves, then the more we have to give. And the better we feel, the more we can do. And the better we feel and the more we look after ourselves, rather than that awful downward spiral that goes down into depression and anxiety and overwhelm, we can start a nice upward cycle where, you feel better and you feel more in control and you feel like you've got more energy and you feel better in yourself, so you can do more. And because you can do more, then you feel better. So it just goes up and up and up and up. And so you start to get that feeling of control back. If you are, like me, a highly sensitive person, you are a gift to the world. Unlike any other gift, you just need to know how to protect it, and you need to know how to use it, all right? How to use it and how to get the best from it so that you can enjoy it in a way that doesn't deplete you, okay? So get back here, right? You are number one. Understand what emotions are yours and what are not yours. Stop trying to give to everyone and be everything. The first person you've got to give to is yourself. Understand all emotions are temporary and do what you can, right? Just do what you can. As I said, if you're too overwhelmed or exhausted to bring some order to the chaos, just do one little surface, just one little thing, and you can just focus on that. Even if it's just you've got a little favorite picture in a frame, and you can just get a tissue or something and just clear the glass so you can look at that and it's clean. That'll give you something good to focus on. Georgia says it is a truly beautiful place. I spend time in Ireland too. Thank you so much for this. It is difficult because my partner is also chronically ill and in overwhelm. I want to find a way to strike a balance so we can both get better. Being highly sensitive has been difficult so far, but I want to embrace it correctly. Thank you so much. I'm approaching being ready to try a discovery session. Fantastic, Georgia. Be wonderful to meet you. Now, remember, with your partner, you can only be responsible for you, right? So this is very much, Georgia, like if you've ever been in an airplane, you know, and they give the talk about the safety, and they say when the oxygen mask drops, you got to put it on yourself first before you can help anybody else. So put it on yourself before you put it on your children. So you need to focus on you. You are not responsible for your partner's chronic illness. That is his responsibility, and it's his overwhelm, not yours. So you've got to focus on yourself first. Now, there's two positives to this. One, it's going to release you from a lot of stress and overwhelm in yourself, right? And make you feel better, help you feel better. And two, you are setting an example. So you're leading by example. So you're showing how things can change, and then he can notice the changes going on in you, hopefully, and begin to make the changes himself. Like I said, you can't get somebody out of the hole if you're down in the hole with them. You've got to be above them in a position to help them to get up, but they've still got to do the work. It is not your responsibility. So you look after you first. You put your oxygen mask on. It doesn't mean that you don't care about him. Doesn't mean that you don't love him. Doesn't mean you don't empathize with him. But you've got to separate yourself from his overwhelm and start dealing with your own. And that's the only way that change is going to happen, right? It's going to start with one person. Change begins with one person. And that's hopefully what I'm doing with all of the things that I put out here for all of you watching and all of you consuming my content, or, you know, if get on my newsletter list, if you're not on that, become one of my VIPs, okay, because you're always going to be the first to know. I'm always trying to offer support as best I can, and I do that by trying to share in a real way, like my real life with chronic illness. I'm not glossing over it. I'm not making it, you know, better or more beautiful or anything like that, or trying to put a rose on it. I want to show up as I am, which means I've shown up when I have flares. I show up when I'm feeling good. I show up this morning when I'm not feeling, you know, that sparkly, because this is my real life. And the more authentic we are, right, the more we talk about things openly through that one person, it sends that ripple effect, right? It sends that ripple effect. So I hope that I can give you some support and you some guidance, or you some inspiration or feelings of validation that how you're feeling is normal, right? That's why I want to normalize all of these emotions of chronic illness. And then when you start to feel validated, then you feel better. And then that ripple effect spreads out. So, Georgia, if you're looking after yourself, definitely, that's the most important thing. Everything's going to flow from that. Everything will get better from that. So just start putting your focus on you. That, I promise you, it is going to help, right? It is absolutely going to help. So I've got to head off, get ready to start my day's work. Hope that was useful for you guys. So any questions, if you're watching this in the replay, you can certainly leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. So enjoy your day, enjoy your evenings, and I'll be back at the same time next week with another topic for you. So remember, you can watch this on YouTube channel, so head over there, subscribe. All of my videos are there. You can sign up to my newsletter. You get Moving Through the Grief of Chronic Illness, which has now all been updated and revised. So it's looking beautiful and bright, sparkly and new. You've got that to use as well. It's a very valuable tool and resource, and that's my gift to you for signing up on my VIP newsletter list over at emotionalautoimmunity.com. There are so many ways that I can help you and support you without you actually needing to work with me. But of course, I would love you to work with me, because that's where I can really give you the most benefit. So enjoy your day, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.